still alive. The rumor was never meant to survive this long, yet like a shadow that refuses the dawn, it lingered, it breathed, it grew stronger with every passing song. The rumor was never meant to survive this long, yet like a shadow that refuses the dawn, it lingered, it breathed, it grew stronger with every passing song. On a quiet evening in the glowing heart of Seoul, where neon lights flicker like secrets waiting to be told, the world once again turned its eyes toward two names it could never seem to let go: Jun-ho and Im Yoon-ah. It began, as these stories often do, not with a confession, not with a headline, but with something far more dangerous: a pattern. Not loud, not clear, but subtle and rare, like echoes of something lingering in the air. Since their unforgettable journey in King the Land, fans believed the curtain had closed, the story complete, the ending composed. Yet every time the world moved on, something small would pull it back. Another glance, another moment, another track. A public event here, a quiet interaction there. And suddenly, the rumor would rise again like it was always there. They've moved on, some would say. It's over, others would claim. But then something happens, and the world whispers their names again. It was during a recent high-profile gathering, another elegant night not unlike the Blue Dragon Film Awards, when the atmosphere shifted in a way no one could quite explain. The hall shimmered with luxury, the audience filled with stars, conversations drifting like soft melodies beneath crystal chandeliers. Yet even in a room so full, attention found its way back to them. Not because they stood together, but because they didn't. On opposite sides of the room, surrounded by different circles, engaged in separate conversations, they existed like two parallel lines, never touching, yet somehow connected in design. And that's when it happened again. A moment so small it could have disappeared, yet powerful enough to freeze time and place. Jun-ho paused mid-conversation, his attention drifting for just a fraction too long. His gaze moved, not randomly, not casually, but with a quiet intention that fans watching later would analyze frame by frame. Across the room, beneath a cascade of golden light, stood Im Yoon-ah, laughing, radiant, unaware, or perhaps aware, of the invisible thread that seemed to connect them. For a second, just 1 second, the noise of the room faded into nothingness. And though they stood apart, the distance between them felt strangely thin. The cameras didn't linger long. The moment wasn't highlighted, but it was captured. And in today's world, that's all it takes. Within hours, clips began to circulate. Watch his eyes. Pause right here. Tell me that's nothing. The internet, as always, became a stage of endless interpretation. Some called it coincidence. Others called it confirmation. But most simply called it what it had always been, a mystery that refuses to end. Because this wasn't the first time. There had been the interviews where their answers seemed too aligned, too aware, too carefully designed. There were the behind-the-scenes clips from King the Land, where laughter came too easily, where silence felt too comfortable, where even the smallest gestures carried a weight impossible to ignore. And then there were the award shows, the glances, the smiles, the moments that lasted seconds but lived for weeks online, each one small on its own. But together, they formed a story no one could ignore. A story with no clear beginning, no confirmed middle, and certainly no ending. Why do people still care? One reporter asked during a broadcast discussion. The answer was simple. Because some stories are not built on facts, they are built on feeling. And the feeling between Jun-ho and Im Yoon-ah was something audiences had recognized long before the rumors began. It was there in the way they looked at each other, not dramatically, not obviously, but gently, like a quiet understanding shared between two people who didn't need to explain. It was there in their timing, always slightly off, yet somehow perfectly aligned, like two melodies played separately that still create harmony when heard together. And perhaps that is why the rumor refuses to die. Because it was never just a rumor. It was a question, a possibility, a story left unfinished. As the night continued and the event slowly came to an end, the crowd began to disperse, laughter fading into the distance, footsteps echoing through marble halls. Outside, The city pulsed with life, unaware of the quiet narrative unfolding within those walls. One by one, cars arrived, doors opened, goodbyes were exchanged, and once again, they left separately. No dramatic exit, no shared spotlight, just two individuals walking their own paths beneath the same night sky. Yet somewhere in the minds of millions watching from afar, those paths never truly felt separate, because the world had seen too much, or perhaps just enough. Back online, the discussions continued. Maybe it's just coincidence. Maybe we're reading too much into it. Or maybe, and that maybe was all it took to keep the story alive. Because in a world where everything is explained, confirmed, and categorized, mystery becomes something rare, something valuable, something unforgettable. And the story of Jun-ho and Im Yoon-ah exists in that rare space, between reality and imagination, between truth and perception, between what is known and what is felt. A place where a single glance can mean everything, or nothing at all. A place where silence speaks louder than words. A place where a rumor, once born, refuses to fade into the past. Because some stories are not meant to end. They are meant to linger, to evolve, to be rewritten with every new moment, every new glance, every new scene. And as long as the world continues to watch, as long as fans continue to wonder, as long as those small, unspoken moments continue to exist, the rumor will live on, not as truth, not as fiction, but as something in between, something untouchable, something unforgettable, a story without an ending, still unfolding, still unwritten, still alive.